Welcome to the CEO Insider Podcast, powered by YTexas. My name is Sandy McIlree, along with Ed Curtis, and we have an exciting guest today that's doing some groundbreaking stuff. And if you've seen much news at all lately, there's a chance that you've seen our guest. And Ed, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody who we're going to be talking to?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, I was watching CNBC and I saw this interview with this incredible company and person who we're going to be interviewing today. And I looked up and I said, hey, they're headquartered in San Antonio, Texas. So I said, I'd love to reach out. Reached out, and here we are today with the CEO of Xenex, Morris Miller. First, Morris, I want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so what really amazed me, obviously, Sandy, you and I have been talking a lot about what's happening with the COVID virus and the companies in Texas that are making a huge impact. And this company, Xenex, has a light strike germ zapping robot that is made right here in San Antonio. And it disinfects germs with patented UV lighting. It's just an unbelievable story. I really wanted to get into this with Morris and really just kind of talk to you about what you're doing in today's day and age with what's happening. But you're also you've been founded here in Texas and Houston, and give us a little background on the company and you.
So thanks. The company was actually founded by two Johns Hopkins PhD epidemiologists, Dr. Mark Stibik and Dr. Julie Stachowiak. They were at the Houston Technology Center incubating this. At the time, they recognized that hospitals for about 6 to 9 years had been using these devices that have these blue glowing mercury light bulbs. And they were like, wow, the idea of using ultraviolet light might be a way to seriously stop the spread of infections. But they felt like they had a better way to create UV light using pulsed xenon. They came to me here in San Antonio, and in a short time after sharing their mission, I said, okay, let's give this a shot.
So these are robots, correct? They're deployed into an area that you want to be disinfected, correct?
Right. So it's a robot. Then we have two different kinds. We have some that move around by themselves, like everybody would think, that looks like something you'd see like Rosie on the Jetsons. And then we have others that are manually placed in the room. And inside that robot is a xenon lamp. And basically you press a button to start the cycle. The robot scans the room, makes sure there's nobody in the room. Then the xenon lamp comes up and it puts out high intensity, broad spectrum, ultraviolet light. And it's that high intensity light that will destroy the pathogens or what's ever around it. Traditionally, that's been in hospitals. Since COVID hit, now we're seeing demand from hotels, from gymnasiums, from schools, from office buildings, just all sorts of places that people have always sort of said, well, maybe it's clean, maybe it's not. Now they're worried about it and they want to make sure that it's disinfected.
When I first heard about you, it was probably, I know you've been around since 2009, but you came on my radar, I want to say February of this year, which is pre-pandemic. How has your world changed? And a two-part question, and where have your robots been deployed to? Can you kind of give us their history?
So when the company started, we were really focused on hospitals, and we were expanding throughout the United States, even as recently as February of 2020. We had heard that there might be some kind of a virus that had hit China in late December, early January, and we were looking at it. The other thing is, over the last 4 years, we put international partnerships in places like Italy, Singapore, Japan, Thailand, Canada, the UK, South Africa. So we had all of these international partners who were kind of going along and buying a few machines here or there. And all of a sudden, like when COVID hit Italy, they started ordering 10 and then 20 and then 50 machines. And it was kind of the leading edge of demand. And over the past really 3 months, we've just seen a huge amount of adoption, both internationally and within the United States.
What have these been used on in the past? Ed so eloquently put it in our intro, a germ zapper. What have they been used on before? I'm thinking of some of the other strains of pandemic that we've had. Have they been used there?
So, right. So when Ebola hit in 2014, this was the robot that was used at Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas. to disinfect the room where the Ebola patient unfortunately passed away. And at that time, everybody was worried about going in there. And we looked at it and said, we know that we can kill the Ebola virus in literally 1 minute. And so we had an employee who said, I'm not scared at all. He knew what the science was behind our broad spectrum, high intensity robots. We went up there, he went up there, and Corey, he disinfected that room, took him about 10 minutes. Then the housekeepers came in and they did their traditional clean, not worrying that they were going to get infected. We did one more disinfection cycle, and that room has been ready to go ever since. And clearly there's been no spread of Ebola. So they've been used for that. In normal hospital situations, there's pathogens like C. diff, Clostridium difficile, vancomycin-resistant enterococci, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, MRSA, and even by their very names, MRSA is methicillin-resistant staph. It's like, these are things that antibiotics can't treat anymore. And Xenex has been very helpful for the hospitals to stop the spread of these infections for which there's no antibiotics. And that's what we've been doing. And I think the thing that we're most proud of is that the hospitals that use it, they end up getting between a 50 and even 100% reduction in infection rates. And that's what they've published. We have 33 peer-reviewed published studies. About half of those are infection rate reduction studies against the superbugs that are traditionally challenging people before COVID hit the scene.
Wow. Amazing work.
And these robots, they stay stationary, right? They're not flying around the hospital. So they'll need to be in one spot for a while.
Yeah, great question. So generally, and I'll just demonstrate it with a phone, you put the robot, let's say my hand is a bed, you're going to put it on the left side of the bed and you're going to run it for 5 minutes. Then you're going to flip everything over in the room and you're going to put it on the opposite side of the bed and run it for 5 minutes. Because every bed has two sides, every object in the room, telephone, nurse's call button, mattress, all of that has two sides. So you run it in the bathroom first for 5 minutes while you're cleaning up the rest of the room. Left side, flip, 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 flip. Right side, open drawers, open closets, open, close closets. And now the room is properly disinfected and it's safe for the next person to enter. Most people don't realize if a occupant of a room had one of these superbug infections and you go into it afterwards, you have a 40% higher chance of getting that infection. This is why it's imperative for the hospitals to do this for the patients, because the patients don't even know that they need to ask for it. I think in a post-COVID world, people are going to demand disinfection. They are going to demand disinfection because now they know better. And one of the interesting things that came out of Bergamo, Italy, there was an interesting article that said the hospital became the agent of infection. So literally the hospital was making people sick. And I suppose the last part of this is that as long as you have electricity somewhere, 110, 220 volt electricity, that Xenex robot allows you to turn electricity into disinfection. You have a box of bulbs, you can disinfect thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of rooms.
What are the economics on this, Morris? I mean, is this something that I'm sure you would like to see it scale to the point where every household had one? But right now, it's hospitals, hotels, that type of thing. And what kind of money are we looking at?
So it's hospitals, hotels, doctors' offices, office buildings, government buildings, airplanes, airports, all of these spaces need it. Generally, it's going to cost about $2 to $3 a room. The robots in a non-hospital setting, you're going to run it for 2 minutes on each side of the bed in a hotel room and then 2 minutes in the bathroom. So literally in 6 minutes, you have a properly disinfected room that all of us would feel comfortable staying in, knowing that even if the person before us had a terrible cold, you're not going to get it. Fever, influenza, you're not going to get it. $3, $4 a room, completely reasonable for you to say to the hotel, you know what, did you strike my room with a light strike robot? I really don't want to stay in the room unless it's been properly disinfected. Right. That's what we're going to be able to bring. And at 60 rooms a day, that's what the hospitals have been able to do. $3 a room, no problem.
Wow. I keep in my mind when you say robot, I think of the Roombas, the little vacuums. And I'm just trying to picture one, if they were the same cost as a Roomba, everyone would get one and have one at home too, right?
Right. I think, our current market estimates are that there's a need for about 1.7 million of these robots worldwide.
Wow.
To get all of the nursing homes, all of the skilled nursing facilities, all of these gymnasiums. there's schools. I mean, there's so many places that you don't realize, people are congregating. When somebody gets sick, I mean, we've all seen it where, I have kids, I would imagine you all have kids, and one child gets sick and all of a sudden the entire classroom is sick. There's no doubt what's happening.
Yeah.
I think post-COVID, everybody's going to be a little bit more like, you know what, you're sick. We're going to Zoom conference that classroom setting just like we are today. Why don't you do your homework from home, and we'll keep everybody else, safe and healthy in the classroom.
Amazing.
Well, I mean, this market is endless. We talk to CEOs every week, and their number one concern is getting everyone back to the office safe and healthy and comfortable that they're going to be okay. And I think something like this, they talked about taking temperatures before they walk into the room. I mean, your market must be endless. Again, I know it's $2 a room. I know that the piece of equipment, there's a purchase price to the piece of equipment. How many square footage does one cover? So if you had a 10,000 square foot headquarters, how many would you need of these?
So we were called, there was a broadcasting facility that had some concerns. They didn't necessarily have somebody that had COVID, but they were worried about it. And we disinfected about 40,000 square feet with 2 robots in 10 hours. So 20,000 square feet with a single robot, really getting offices, getting conference rooms. What we're doing internally while we've had everybody out, the manufacturing team has been here every day to try to meet market demand. And as a leadership team, we've been coming every day to cheer them on and to work with prospects and customers. In this case, if we meet in a conference room with more than 2 or 3 of us, we bring in a robot, we run it on one side of the table for 2 minutes, the other side of the table for 2 minutes, that conference room stays disinfected. I've been trying to get this into some high-level government office buildings. The Texas Center for Emergency Management has a great leader named Nim Kidd. I don't know if you have ever had Nim on, but he's a brilliant guy. So they bought this for the Emergency Management Center to keep the team that's really protecting Texas safe. And then after that happened, then we ended up going into the governor's office, and we're deploying it across the state at key places like nursing homes to try to prevent the spread of infections and prevent the needless deaths.
Yeah, you've sort of answered my next question. There was about government spending on this. Do you see a willingness from the government to award the contracts to you to do this type of work?
Yeah, people are often critical of the government. We're in over 70 VA facilities. We're in 13 Department of Defense facilities, DoD facilities. We've actually seen a tremendous willingness, both pre-COVID and post-COVID, for those facilities to do what they need to do for our veterans, for our soldiers. There's a huge desire to protect the people that are protecting us. I've actually been pretty impressed with how efficient the government has been. And even when they've wanted to double check and triple check all of those 33 published studies by our hospitals, they do their own checking and they're like, okay, this is good to go. When we announced a week ago Thursday that this is the only device proven in the world, right? It figures it would come out of the great state of Texas, the only device in the world proven to kill SARS-CoV-2. I mean, that was one of the signals that the government and other institutions needed to say, okay, this is now the time to buy this. This is the only proven product. Let's go do it.
Yeah.
Is this something that the robot, is it something that they purchase and they own and they can, someone can operate, or is this something that you come in and you disinfect the room and then you leave with your robot? How does that work?
No, most of the robot users also own the robots.
Okay.
We do something even where everybody gets to name their robots.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things that we've seen is that when hospitals name their robots and employees take a part in that, they really take care of them as if they're a member of their family. So of our thousands of robots that are out there, all of them have unique names given by the employees who operate them. Clearly, not necessarily clearly, but we're willing to sell them. We're willing to lease them. We're willing to do it on a service basis. Our, the original mission that the founders told me the day they came to here at San Antonio, they wanted to reduce the pain and suffering and stop the deaths caused by these infections. There's 2 million infections in the United States each year that people don't ask for, and 100,000 people die. That's about 275 people a day.
Mm-hmm.
That was their mission, to stop it. Now with coronavirus, I think you saw a few weeks ago, they were expecting 3,000 deaths a day. this is something that we can have a huge impact to reduce and make everybody be able to stay in healthier environments.
This also, go ahead, Ed.
No, go.
I'm curious. This also covers, you think of a room, but this is also materials too, equipment. I'm thinking of masks. I'm thinking of medical equipment. That as long as it gets hit by the light, then it's clean.
Right. So part of the testing that we did at the testing was done at another great institution, which if y'all haven't met Larry Schlesinger from the Texas Biomedical Research Institute, extraordinary man, both a physician and a professor. They have a biosafety level 3 and 4 lab. That's where we had to run the test because SARS-CoV-2 is so dangerous. Not only did we test it on surfaces, but we also tested it against N95 masks. And they reported back to us, we were able to get a 99.99% reduction on N95 masks. 3M, we had sent a robot to and said, is it okay to use it on the masks? 3M had come back to us and said, yes, you don't damage the materials, you're not damaging the elastics, you're not hurting the electrostatics that are in the mask. So we know from an efficacy standpoint from the Institute that it works, and we know from 3M that we're not going to damage anything. 5 minutes on each side of the mask. It gives the hospitals an alternative to keep that personal protective equipment clean while they're waiting for the PPE supplies to climb, which I hope will happen over the next 30, 60 days. I know the government's working hard on that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's big. I want to get into San Antonio a little bit. You're in Military City, USA. The biotech, I think it's the second largest biotech concentration in the entire country. Obviously, you were founded in Houston with MD Anderson. Talk a little bit about the benefit of being here and what San Antonio is doing for you.
Sure. So, originally the founders were in Houston. We did the original testing at MD Anderson. MD Anderson proved that this was 22 times better than manual housekeeping. And we kind of thought at that point in time, like, wow, it's 22 times better. And we took our, the original robots back from MD Anderson after they did the test, because we wanted to see if MD Anderson thought it was that good, would they buy it? And to MD Anderson's credit, they bought 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 7. We were like, okay, MD Anderson believes it. That's what we were able to start leveraging across the nation and across the state. Being here in San Antonio, not only do we have that Biomedical Research Institute, but there's lots of Biomed SA, was something that was started by Henry Cisneros, another famous San Antonian. And there's a very willing group. So, we've been at BAMC, which is the big Army hospital, University Health Systems. We're in the VA hospital here. So there's lots of pockets that we've been able to plug into, not to mention like Glenn Houff is a incredibly fine transplant surgeon at University Health Systems. He's been using it on his transplant patients, and he's been very pleased for about the last 7 years.
Wow. And the thing I think of are the hotels. That's got to be way high on the list right now.
It is. I think we keep on talking about it to the hotels in terms of instilling confidence back in the traveling public. If you know that your hotel might have had somebody that had COVID, it's not worth staying there. So it started with the Westin. We now have other hotels who have sort of stepped up to the plate. And basically they go, look, for 6 minutes, to be able to provide my guests with a disinfected environment, that is totally worth the investment to them. And it's a small price to pay. They look at the cost of the robots and they kind of analyze it and they go, well, it's less than $100 a day.
Right.
And as long as I'm getting 20 rooms, $5 a room, to be able to say to my patrons, to my guests, hey, I'm putting you in a properly disinfected room, totally worth the cost benefit.
Well, it is, because the alternative is people are just not going to stay at the hotel.
That is for sure.
Yeah, and it's just that's reality.
Right.
Yeah.
Morris, what's your life like these days? You've been on the national circuit. I've seen you all over cable news. What's happening?
I think we've been focused on getting this solution out to the hospitals around the world. I think it's easy. Normally, when we make sales, we might high five each other. We might ring a bell and say, yeah, we got another hospital, because we know that 90 days later, we're going to probably be able to report 50 to 70% infection rate reductions. We've been doing a lot of appearances to explain to people the benefit, especially after this is the only product proven to kill it. And yet we're really, I think Irene Hahn here said it the best, that we're really humbled to be in a position to have the leading product in the category when you have a worldwide pandemic. That doesn't happen very often.
Right.
So we're really working 7 days a week. And when I say 7 days a week, I literally mean it, manufacturing and all of the leadership team, to try to get these robots out the door as fast as we can. We were, backlogged significantly, and we've been pulling it in about 2 weeks per week. And the backlog sometimes grows, but I mean, we keep on reeling it back in, just trying to get our secondary and tertiary suppliers to give us simple things like metals and other stuff that you would think, well, there'd never be a shortage of metals. There's a shortage sometimes. And so we're working closely and hard with them to get the robots out the door as fast as possible.
And now your entire supply chain is in the United States?
We had one printed circuit board that was outside.
Okay.
And as soon as this hit, we pulled that back in. We do have these wheels on the robot that I just really love. Like, they've got the perfect shock absorbers. Those are made in South Korea. So we still have some of those, but almost everything else is made here in the United States. If you saw the shock absorbers, they're pretty nice.
Yeah.
It's got to be exciting times for you. And it's amazing work and much needed. So hats off to you and your team.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great visiting with you, and best of luck on all your stuff. I mean, you got a lot going on.
Well, thank you. Thank you both for having me. I really appreciate it. Enjoyed talking to you.
You bet.
Yeah. Thanks, Morris. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks, Morris. Take care.
You bet. Bye-bye.
There's a guy that's I think we're going to hear more from. I think the name of that company is, everyone's going to know it very, very soon, especially if you're checking into a hotel and they tell you, yes, it's been disinfected by Xenex, right?
Xenex,
It's been Xenex. It's been Xenex.
It's going to be like Kleenex or,
Our Xerox or
Xerox, exactly,
all of those brands. You're going to want to know. There'll be little stickers on the door. It's, Xenex. So that's amazing.
And then the second thing you hear is going to be from San Antonio, Texas.
Right, from San Antonio. And what amazing work, right?
Yeah. It's, and, they've been around for 10 years.
Yeah.
And like he said, the timing was perfect, and thank goodness they're here.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure that you follow us on social media. You'll find us at YTexas. And of course, for the podcast version of this, you can go to YTexas.com. That, and along with a lot of other podcasts, are there. Ed, we'll talk to you soon.
Take care, Sandy.